What if I told you that the greatest treasure a man ever had was the very thing he threw away? What if the hands he pushed aside were the same hands that would one day hold the key to everything he had ever wanted? And what if the moment he chose pride over love was the moment his life started quietly falling apart? Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, like a house whose foundation is cracking beneath the floor, and no one notices until the whole thing comes down. This is not just a story. This is a mirror. And some of you, if you are honest with yourselves, will see your own reflection before it's over. Sit down. Get comfortable, because what I'm about to tell you will stay with you long after this video ends. His name was Daniel Okafor, and in the year 2002, in the sun-drenched city of Enugu, Nigeria, Daniel Okafor was the kind of man that other men wanted to be. He was 31-year-old, broad-shouldered, sharp-minded, and burning with a quiet, dangerous kind of ambition. He had built a small but growing construction business from nothing, from absolutely nothing, starting with a borrowed wheelbarrow and a reputation for showing up on time when no one else would. By 2002, he had 12 employees, 2 trucks, and a contract with the state government to help build a new school complex on the outskirts of the city. He was not yet rich, but he was on his way, and everybody could see it. But if you ask Daniel what his greatest achievement was, back then, in those golden, unsuspecting days, he wouldn't point to his trucks, or his contracts, or his calloused, capable hands. He would point to Adaeze. Adaeze Okafor, born Adaeze Nwosu, was the kind of woman that poets write about and ordinary men struggle to describe. She was 27, slender, with eyes that seemed to hold entire conversations before her mouth ever opened. She laughed easily, cried privately, and loved fiercely. The kind of love that doesn't announce itself with grand gestures, but shows up every single morning quietly, like sunrise. She had given up a promising career as a secondary school teacher to support Daniel's business in its early days, keeping his books, answering his calls, ironing his shirts at 5 in the morning before his workers arrived, so that her husband would always look like the successful man she believed he was becoming. They had met at a church fellowship in 1998, argued about the interpretation of a Bible passage on their first conversation, and been inseparable ever since. Their wedding was modest, 60 guests, a borrowed hall, and a cake that leaned slightly to the left. But the joy in that room, the real joy, was something money could never have purchased. For 4 years, they were happy. Not perfect, but genuinely, deeply, quietly happy. It started with whispers. It always starts with whispers. Daniel's mother, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, was a woman of fierce opinions and ancient beliefs. She was the matriarch of the Okafor family, respected, feared, and deeply convinced that a man's worth was measured by the sons he produced. In her world, daughters were beautiful. Daughters were loved, but sons carried the name. Sons built the legacy. Sons were the proof that God had truly blessed a man's household. She had given her own husband 3 sons, and she wore that fact like a crown. When Adaeze became pregnant for the first time in early 2001, Mrs. Ngozi lit candles and prayed loudly for a grandson. She told anyone who would listen that she had seen it in a dream, a strong boy born in the rainy season who would carry the Okafor name to greatness. In September 2001, Adaeze gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. They named her Chisom, meaning God is with me on this journey. Mrs. Ngozi smiled at the baby, but behind that smile, something shifted. Next time, she told Daniel quietly as they stood in the hospital corridor, it will be a boy. Daniel nodded. He wasn't worried, not yet. He loved baby Chisom with a fierceness that surprised even him. This tiny creature who wrapped her fingers around his thumb and looked up at him like he was the whole world. he would come home from construction sites covered in dust and sit on the floor for an hour just watching her sleep. For a little while, the whispers were quiet. But whispers never stay quiet for long. By the middle of 2002, Adaeze was pregnant again. This time, the pressure was different. This time, Daniel's uncles had joined the conversation. His father's eldest brother, Uncle Chukwemeka, had sat Daniel down over palm wine and spoken to him in the slow, deliberate way that older men use when they want their words to land like stones in still water. Daniel, you are the last son of your father. Your brothers have boys. Your name, your father's name, who will carry it? A man who has no son is like a river with no direction. It just spreads out and disappears. Daniel had gone home that night quieter than usual. Adaeze noticed. She always noticed. "What is wrong?" she asked, rubbing his shoulders as he sat on the edge of their bed. "Nothing," he said, "just tired." But it wasn't tiredness. It was the beginning of something ugly. A seed of doubt being planted in soil that had once been too strong to grow such things. He was starting to listen to voices that he should have silenced. He was starting to measure his wife against a standard she had never agreed to be measured by. And neither of them knew it yet, but that was the moment the ground beneath their marriage began to crack. In November 2002, Adaeze gave birth to their second child, another girl, perfect, healthy, beautiful. They named her Obiageli, one who has come to enjoy wealth. Daniel held her in the hospital. He kissed her forehead. He told Adaeze she did well. But that night, alone in the corridor while Adaeze slept, Daniel Okafor stood under the fluorescent lights in the hospital and felt something he was deeply ashamed of: disappointment. Not in her daughter, never in her daughter, but in himself, in his life, in the creeping, horrible fear that maybe, just maybe, the men around him were right. He didn't tell anyone what he felt that night. He buried it. And buried things, as you will come to learn, have a terrible way of growing in the dark. You've just met Daniel and Adaeze.
Almost
you
done with
think you
your
know
shirt,
where
honey.
the story is
Thanks,
going.
babe. You always do a
Trust
great
me,
job.
you don't.
Of course.
Because
What's next
what
on the
happens
list?
next will change
I can't believe
everything
you
you
did
think you know
this.
about strength,
What did I do?
legacy,
You know
and
what you
it
did.
truly
Stop
means
lying.
to be a
Timas.
I'm
man.
not. Please,